Frank. So I was listening to you talk to Jack, and I know you don't know me, but I like talking to theists and people who think they've had like supernatural experiences and that type of thing. A lot of the times I'll end up just running like my atheist presuppositional apologetics if I go against like a presuppositional apologist, right? Just because their worldview is not even possible, given the fact that the universal quantum field is a necessary being, right? But I do enjoy talking with theists that are a little bit more reasonable than presuppositional apologists about other topics, like like being a prophet or supernatural stuff. Have you seen Bigfoot? Whatever, right? Ghosts, goblins, demons. It's always a fun and enjoyable conversation to me, at least, right? Because I don't believe in any of that stuff. Just straight up, I know you're going to explain your story here, and I'm not going to mislead you. Right now, I think that being a prophet is impossible, right? But this is a good opportunity to either change my mind or change people in the audience's mind, or maybe just tell your story and share your viewpoints about the world, right? But I guess I don't even know where to start with you. Tell us a little bit about you, Frank. It's great to have you here. Thank you for showing up.
Okay, yeah, thank you for the invitation, Breakfast Tacos. I didn't know exactly like what you meant by an interview. And so yeah, I was over at Jack's just chilling out. I think we've crossed paths a few times. I've seen you in the chat or I've seen you online. And I watched the two videos you did with him recently. Didn't you do one with him and Snafu and one with him and Flow State, I believe?
Yeah, those were both really fun.
Yeah, I had the opportunity to watch both of those, so that was good magic. Yeah, to give you a little bit of perspective on my situation, I was born and raised into a like your average everyday American family, I guess. My dad was a naval officer, my mother was a homemaker, and I was raised in part by a Christian theology because I went to a private Lutheran school until about junior high. And so, yeah, that was on the border of Compton and Long Beach. I grew up in Southern California, Los Angeles area. I'm not sure where you're from. You sound Midwestern, though.
I don't really give out my location, but I'm Central Time, so take from that.
Okay, yeah. No, you don't have to. I'm not trying to triangulate you or anything. But, yeah, just a general sense. You're an American as much as myself. At a young age, I had a very deep interest. I steered away from religion because I thought it was mostly bullshit. And so, by the time I was 12 or 13, I thought I knew it all. And I kind of gave up on religion for the most part. Like I was checked out mentally anyway. But I liked all of the stories about miracles and magic and this type of thing. I appreciated the understanding of Moses and Solomon and David and guys who actually talked to God. And so I tried to figure out the way that they got into it. And my mother ended up, after she didn't have to take care of kids anymore, I was her last child from 5 children. I was the youngest. She took a job in school for a while, and she worked in administration, and then she worked as a manager of a bookstore, which is basically like a Barnes and Nobles. It's like a big box store for books. I'm sure you're familiar with it.
Yeah, I've spent plenty of money there over the years.
Okay. Yeah, good magic. So like that happened like when I was in the 8th or 9th grade. And I would go down there, and every day after school, I would wander the bookstore, and I ended up accumulating this huge collection of books on the occult. And I started to learn that King Solomon was much different than he was portrayed in the Bible. And there were all these like 15th century all the way into the 20th century, various guys that wrote books on magic. And it being Southern California, they had a really eclectic collection of different authors publishing books like New Falcons Press and all different kinds of, the book publishers that were dealing with that type of material. So I started to do researches into the esoteric and the occult, and I found a love for it. I found that looking at Solomon as a magician and a wizard king was a little more interesting than just looking at him as this like subject of an all-powerful God. And so I kind of weaned myself away from a traditional theological understanding and developed more of what I believe to be an eclectic synthesis of Chinese Taoism and the Western mystery tradition. I moved to China in 2001, and I've lived here since then. I was about 30 at the time, and I came over here to attend a postgraduate research program into Tong poetry and Taoism as well. I study Tao. I don't know if you're familiar with any of that, but I'm not really super conversant in some of the terminology you use. So if you have a problem with anything you ask me or anything we talk about, I'll make sure that I clarify that I don't really know what something means. I've been in the Chinese world, and I've had my head in the Chinese literature for the last 30 years. And so I'm out of touch with Western society to some extent. I do come home periodically, but I make my home here in Twilight Zone, Old Peking, as I like to call it.
Gotcha. So you're saying that you collected these books on the occult, and it allowed you to see what you feel is a correct interpretation of the Bible?
I don't know if I would go that far, but at least it expanded me beyond the study of the Bible and to understand Christian mythology and the stories from a metaphorical and maybe allegorical perspective as well. I should tell you too that I've been initiated into lots of different secret groups. One of the first ones was the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. I received like an official initiation with a Golden Dawn group. One with a
What is that? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Okay, so the Golden Dawn was started in the end of the 19th century by a bunch of British mystics that sought to collect like ancient teachings that they were claiming were ancient teachings from like 14th and 15th century manuscripts on magic specifically, much of it coming from like Greek papyrus and even like a diverse number of places, but like Egyptian, Sumerian, Canaanite, Hebrew, Greek, Roman, and they collected all of that and they tried to derive a magical system from it. So I don't know if you know what ceremonial or ritual magic is and like what its intention is, but that's basically.
I mean, I've played a lot of D&D, and I mean, I've read the Bible, right? Like in the Bible, it's like ritual blood magic to the god monster, right?
Yeah. So something like that, but modern day practitioners, I wouldn't say, are much interested in like any kind of sacrifice of blood. And again, I practice ceremonial magic and ritual magic, but I do it with a foundation and understanding through Chinese esoteric Taoism. So do you know something about Tao or no?
Very little.
Okay.
I've had conversations with a few, but I know next to nothing.
All right. So yeah, I've studied it for 40 years very deeply, and I've initiated into temples for Tao as well, like the Universal Society of the Integral Way and another Western mystery one I'm a member of now, most recently. Back in 2019, I went back to the U.S. to join the OTA, but you probably don't. It's similar to the OTO, but it's not. It's the Ordo Templi Astarte. It's by Pope Runyon, Church of Hermetic Sciences. You can look it up if you want. I mean, it's not relevant necessarily, but yeah, that kind of gives you a foundation of my understanding. You did say that you like to talk to people who have had spiritual or supernatural or paranormal encounters as well. I've got dozens of those I can bring to bear. But to lay the groundwork, a little bit of my like cosmology, it's mostly Taoist centered, and then my ritual magic just kind of picks up where that leaves off. So Chinese Tao is mostly rooted in understanding the natural world through Qigong and martial arts and yogic practices and meditative practices and doing incantations and this type of thing in order to awaken the human being to a different, maybe say a different vibration of energy, something like that. That's kind of the 60-second elevator pitch with the upshot.
What do you mean when you say like a different vibration of energy?
Okay, so for example, we've got a practice where you sit in a room with dimmed lights and you use a lantern on a table with an adjustable, like traditionally it would be a flame, but I guess you could just use an electric light if you want. Anyway, we use different sigils and paper filters over the light and do different meditations on this light with it at different levels of illumination in order to adjust the eyes to be able to focus in different levels of light and to be able to detect different frequencies in the prime material realm around us, like in the world, via adapting your sensitivity, or maybe I should say expanding your range of sensitivity to the color spectrum. So that's just a off the cuff example of one.
So do you feel like you see colors better when you're doing that? Or I guess
Oh, yeah,
what's
no,
going on exactly?
No, it's not about feeling per se. It's about like actually changing the function of the eye and the ability for the brain to interpret certain signals. So yeah, you absolutely start to see things like you can perceive like shadow entities and ghosts, and you can see chi and the way chi interacts with the body. I'm sure you're familiar with the term chi, right? You probably heard that from the Chinese culture.
I've played a ninja in Dungeons and Dragons a bunch of times.
Oh, okay, yeah. So you know about ki? They call it ki, I believe, in D&D.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
so
used it to teleport I'd like teleport behind people and then sneak attack. It was pretty dope.
Yeah, it's good magic. That's what they do. You know, they gather the shadow energy around them so they can stay mostly invisible, and then launch like the Demok or Death Touch strike, vibrating palm strike, that kind of thing.
So you're saying you've seen ghosts and that type of thing?
Yeah, absolutely. I've seen spirits. I've seen spirits of the dead. I've seen spirit of like eternal spirits, immortal beings, all different kinds of stuff. But I mean, we'll keep it as narrow as possible.
We'll get to spirits and whatnot, but immortal beings, tell me about this.
Okay, so like there's people who can achieve what's considered to be like a limited amount of physical immortality on the earth, or at least great extended longevity. And these are the ones that typically live to over 100 years. And I've met with a few of those men that what we would consider to be like a minor immortal. But then there's the immortals who cultivated great virtue in their lives on earth, and they are connected with certain geographical formations on our planet, like in our countries and stuff, our countryside. So if you come to China, there are certain areas where really famous immortals have dwelled for hundreds of, and some of them thousands of years. And if you go into
in a spirit realm, or are they physical?
Most have lost their physical body. I believe there are a few that I haven't met directly that have achieved the level of like 200 or 300 years of extended life. But supposedly they're hidden. You know, they start to dwell in like subterranean environments and this kind of thing. I can't prove that. I don't know much about that. But yeah, it would be
for my own understanding. This isn't me mocking you, but is it like Lich ascending to lichdom, except instead of being a lich, it's like a ghost?
Yeah, it could be something similar to that. Definitely. No, and I don't feel that you're mocking me. I also grew up on D&D, so you know, I don't shy away from anything. And here's the thing.
That's just the best analogy I have, right?
Yeah. And I'd like to start from this standpoint. One of the first seminal texts that I read as a young man, I was about 14 or 15 when I read this book, and I've read it almost every year since, is a book by Robert Anton Wilson called Prometheus Rising. And I don't know if you're familiar with it or not, but he wrote a book, and it's basically like a handbook on how to do a paradigm shift. And I'm sure you're familiar with that idea of paradigm shifting.
I'm not sure what you would mean by that. That could be a lot of things.
Well, basically, a paradigm shift from a psychological perspective is that people develop a tunnel reality based on their belief systems. And so they become entrenched in these tunnel realities where their mind can only allow them to see certain aspects in reality. So due to the reticular activating system in the mind, you have to be trained to believe and see what would be considered true to you. So at the most essential stance, it would be something like whatever you believe to be true is true, at least for you. And so if you find yourself in like if you're a very patriotic American and you grow up in let's say a religious encoding, and you really, really take it hook, line, and sinker, then you're just going to be able to view the world through that reality. You know what I mean? Does that make sense to you?
Kind of.
Okay, so in his book,
though, there are a few people in chat that have a few questions.
Okay, sure.
If it gets to be overwhelming, we might have to do super chats only, but I don't think it is right now. So is it okay if I go through a few of those?
Yeah, no worries. Good magic.
Yeah. So, that's the wrong one. They're asking for iPhone pics. Did you record this on the camera on your phone? Everybody has one in their pocket. That's Rainrick66.
Oh, interesting. There was a time I encountered. Is that question for me or for you? I'm not sure if I
That's
understand
for
it.
you. That's
Oh, okay.
thing that, because you said that you had seen immortals and ghosts and spirit
Yeah,
creatures.
I'll tell you an interesting aspect of some of these encounters. There's so many throughout time. Like when I started my cultivation, my practice, again, I was very young, and I proved the basic tenets of magical manifestation at a very, very young age. And so I was kind of like, wow, there must really be something there. And that's why I wanted to describe the book Prometheus Rising, is because I learned to do paradigm shifts early on, which meant if I was in a everyone kind of takes a very narrow way of thinking, like they have blinders on. And the entire book is about doing exercises to break your blinders and shift paradigms. And so I did many different activities where I had to force myself into certain paradigms in order to be able to experience them. So for example, I'm not a scientific materialist and I don't believe that the planet's a globe, just for example. Then I would spend 6 weeks to 2 months or even 3 months researching everything I could about scientific materialism and what it means to exist on a globe planet, right? And then forcing
For
myself.
clarification, are you a flat earther?
No, I'm not. And that's why I
Okay.
wanted to explain my perspective. Okay, so I don't need to get too much into the weeds on it, but basically what it boils down to is that I've adopted a multi-model approach to phenomena. So I don't associate direct causation to something. I say it could be this, that, or the other thing. And I typically try to approach every paranormal encounter or experience that I've had through multiple lenses, saying it could be coincidence, it could be I predicted it, it could be something else, it could be this, it could be that, it could be the other thing. You know what I mean? So I don't attribute it narrowly.
For clarification in regard to Rick's question, it sounds like the answer to that is a no.
No, the answer is actually yes.
You did record it?
I have recorded things, yeah. I was in a situation.
Can you send me, without doxing yourself, can you send me, or even if you included, because you need to turn off location on your phone when you send it through Discord.
Well, no. I'd like to finish the statement before you ask the question.
Okay.
But yeah, just to land it real quick, there was an experience I had near a very famous spiritual site here in Beijing called Gulo, which means drum tower. And so I was out at the drum tower one night and I saw plasma balls forming in the sky, like these red, dynamic, some might call it a UFO. Some might say, hey, it might have been fireworks or something like that. It could have been anything, right? But anyway, I was walking out and I felt the time shift. Oftentimes when you encounter what they call high strangeness, there'll be a bit of a shift in the local paradigm. Things will start to look a little more dreamlike. And I was totally sober when this occurred. I do enjoy drinking from time to time, and I enjoy other things, but at this time I was stone cold sober. And so I'm walking down this. Go ahead.
I'd like to say something real quick. So there is a phenomenon. Yeah. I forget what it's called, but it's kind of like what you're talking about, the ball lightning, whatever, right?
Right.
Phenomenon that does occur. I just forget what the scientific name of it is. But that's something that does happen naturally, and it's
yeah, and it may have been a natural occurrence.
In the air building up and discharging, right?
Right, and this location, Beijing is actually built on many dragon ley lines, and they say they specifically built the city here because there was big magic here. And what does that mean? It means that the ley lines lined up here, yeah, and there's more electromagnetic static energy, and so yeah, there's more potential for what we would deem paranormal or supernatural phenomena.
Are these ley lines?
You're exactly right in that.
World of Warcraft, where it's like lines on the earth where magic come out of.
Right, and in Chinese they would call them dragon lines, Longxian.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So anyway, I took out my phone, and this was back in the early days when I first got here, maybe 02, 03, something like that. And I had one of those little Nokia candy bar phones, but it did have a camera on it, and it could take rudimentary pictures. And so I'm walking down the street, and I see this plasma ball, and it streams by, and then it disappears right when it gets to the drum tower. And I'm like, oh God, I wish I would have caught it, right? But bam, right when I thought that, another one appeared off to the right. So the direction I'm facing doesn't matter. I could get into the weeds, but another one floated by, and I'm like, good God, yeah, damn it, I can get it. And so I lifted up my phone, and I was attempting to take pictures of it, and my phone overheated and turned off, and it wasn't able to record anything. And I've encountered plasma, like that type of, I guess you could call it ball lightning or whatever. I've had plasma encounters about half a dozen times, and every time something similar has happened. I haven't had an experience like that recent enough that I had like a modern smartphone on me. But I do now carry two modern smartphones all the time, and I trained myself, being a YouTuber, to immediately like try to film things whenever they happen. And I've encountered a few things. I've seen some various little creatures around here and shit, but what are they called? Hedgehogs and different kinds of stuff. But you'll always feel a bit of a shift when like you move into like whatever these ley lines are. And there's like, they call it apotheum, which means like time dilation. So there's a lot more to that story that I don't necessarily need to waste your time with the details, but it was pretty interesting. And I think in total about maybe, 4 or 5 plasma balls went by that night. And I even tried to like make other people walking by aware of it. I'm like, hey dude, look up, what is that ball of fire? And I grabbed this one Chinese guy, and I'm like, I made him look up. He was walking by looking at his phone, and he looked up and he just shook his head like, I don't know what the fuck it is. Who cares? And he just kept walking. And I'm like, how funny. What an interesting thing. Because for me, it was just unfathomable. Like I staring at it, and it just seemed so unreal, like I would describe it as about a volleyball size of like burning plasma of red fiery energy. And it almost looked like you would imagine a miniature sun to be there, like within maybe, 100 to 150 feet in front of me up in the sky. Maybe 60 to 80 feet up off the ground, something like that. I don't know, man. It was really trippy.
So for clarification, you have no shareable photos or recordings?
No, and in fact,
if it was a plasma ball, real talk, that's already a recorded phenomenon, and they know what it is.
Just easy answer to the question. No, I wasn't able to.
I think it would be pretty cool that you. I think it's pretty cool you've seen those. But if you sent me a recording of a plasma ball, I would just think it was that natural phenomenon that occurred.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely could be. And again, I'm very malleable in my understanding of causation. And so you could attribute it to a natural source. And if you believe that to be true, then that is true, at least for you. And if you do have paranormal perception, or you've done some training and initiation into exercises that will make you more sensitive to these things, then their synchronicity and the occurrence of them will be more regular, and you will perceive things that are beyond the visible spectrum to ordinary individuals. It does require training. Like imagine, for example, a pianist. They have a greater sensitivity to the tonal range of music, and therefore they're going to be able to identify mistakes in operatic or symphonic music better than you would, right? Like you're going to know a bit more about AI tools on the internet here and making videos than I would. I have no training and no sensitivity to that. So just as a reference point. And I use a scientific method in all my approaches to everything that I've encountered. And I've analyzed them through many lenses. And I'm not
That's
set
a
in
great
stone.
lead into this next question, because science is demonstrable. Raphael was asking, any demonstrable effect of these spirits, demons, ghosts, etc.? And he assumed the answer is going to be no, but I'm sure you have something there, right?
Yeah. Just for full disclosure, there's nothing tangible I could bring forward and offer to you as evidence, like video evidence or any of that. The only thing I can give you is experiential evidence, and that's it. But yeah, it is demonstrable, and there are places, there are temples here in China, and I believe there's places in the West too that you can go and see. You may call it natural phenomena, but the locals would identify it as spiritual phenomena. And the interesting thing is, different things will happen. Like not only will you see like what they call them, like the what's that place in Texas where they have those lights that appear?
I'm not sure.
Oh yeah, there's a city in Texas that's famous for its like swamp lights or whatever. Martha, I think, or Martha or something like that. Anyway, there are lots of places here in China like that that are well known for having like people having spiritual revelations or prophecies when they go to them. And in fact, King Solomon, he slept in a temple that was sacred to his people at the time, and that's how he originally contacted God, was through what they call the of Sialam, if I'm saying that correctly. Anyway, good. Any other questions?
I mean, I've got a lot of questions. I was
No, I
going
meant
through chat though.
from the chat. Yeah, you had a few in the chat.
What's your favorite Goetia demon? Have you interacted with Solomon magic?
Yeah, I do Solomonic magic, but I don't work with demons per se. That's not a part of my practice.
I'm going to turn off this video too because I keep lagging out here. I don't know what's going on. So hopefully, it won't lag because it's lagging out on me.
Yeah, I do practice Solomonic magic, but I just started studying that about 5 years ago, so I'm at a very rudimentary level, and I haven't endeavored to interact with demons of any kind. No, I call upon God and his angels to protect me when I do magical operations. So I do work in the vein of Solomon, but no, I don't work directly with the goetic demons, to answer that question.
Isn't magic in the Bible, though, at least after the Old Testament, considered evil and demonic and
no sorcery and witchcraft, not magic. Magic is it's approbated, approved, and endorsed by God himself. So yeah, Jesus was a magician, Solomon was a magician, Moses was a magician. That's how they did miracles. They practiced magic. They just for the mainstream Christian church, they've taken magic out of it. The middle pillar ritual, that's right. They don't want you learning or waking up or opening your third eye, so to speak. They want everybody happy sheeple, buying and putting money in the hat.
Okay.
They got to keep you barking like Pavlov's dog, right?
What do you think this third eye is that you're talking about?
Well, I guess, from mainstream parlance would consider it the pineal gland and its crystallization and its ability to release melatonin and DMT so that you can see things in an older sense, in a magical sense, we would say see things in the astral light. But in the modern sense, you might call it like the sleep of Sialam, you would call lucid dreaming. And so it's when you it's when you break free from ordinary everyday trance, become mindful, and then awaken an inner vision. So you can close your eyes and visualize things, right?
I've done lucid dreaming before.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, if you go to sleep with the nicotine patch on, you will lucid dream. Not medical advice. Is that right? Advice.
No, I didn't know that. That's interesting.
Once again, not medical advice.
Now, in doing lucid dreaming, were you able to derive anything from your dream, or was it just chaos?
No, they were pretty dope dreams. They were. I don't remember them now. You generally forget your dreams, but when I did them, they were pretty dope.
Yeah, and you say that. So why do people generally forget their dreams? Like, what happens? What's the break?
I don't remember the physical process behind that. It's just something with the way the brain works.
Okay. So it's not something that's of interest to you, really, it sounds like.
Yeah, you normally forget your dreams shortly after you wake up, right? But it was definitely, I do remember that they were definitely interesting dreams, and I'll probably do it again at some point, right? But it's going to sleep with a nicotine patch to just screw up your sleep a little bit.
Yeah, sure. And I mean, if your listeners are interested at all, I do dream magic as well. And so one of the properties, you pass from a hippopompic into a hypnagogic state when coming in and out of the dreaming world. And if you want to remember your dreams, immediately upon waking, you should start to practice like memory palaces in order to build up and remember aspects of the dreaming world. But if you move your head at all, then you disturb the colloidal arrangement in the brain. And so from a scientific perspective, as soon as you move your head or if you get up, you immediately lose the ability to remember your dreams very rapidly. And so immediately becoming aware that you're awake then if you start to re-encode some of your dreaming, you can remember tons of stuff from your dreams. And so I get up every morning pretty much and write my dreams down. If there's something of value, a lot of times nothing of value comes out of the dreaming world.
The main dream that I remember is one from when I was a child when I was attacked by a flying spider.
Nice. I like that.
So, I mean,
yeah,
you're
the
saying
flying,
a lot
the
here,
flying
right?
spiders
So,
are legit. Yeah, they're all coded. There's like an entire backlog of lore on Dreamland, and you can look it up on fandom.com. But yeah, the flying spider. I forget which region of Dreamland they're from, but yeah, they're legit.
okay. What
Yeah,
do
go
you
ahead.
mean Dreamland? Well, tell me about this Dreamland now.
Okay, so Dreamland is a place that's existent, and it's a real place we go, and we spend approximately a third to half of our lives there. But the ordinary individual without initiation will never remember any of their time there. And time actually moves very different in Dreamland. And so, like a single night of dreaming, like you've seen the movie Inception, right? So imagine going into Inception every night when you go to sleep, but every day you have no memory of it. So you're living an alternate life that you have no memory of.
That's interesting. So every time you wake up, it's like coming out of a dream.
Yeah, the gate guardian, or what we call, what's often called the lurker.
Or
at the
I'm sorry, it's like waking up into another dream. I've stated that poorly.
Yeah, maybe that would be one way to describe it. Yeah, like Chuangzi said, I dreamt I was a butterfly, and when I woke up, I didn't know if I was a butterfly dreaming I was a man, or a man that had dreamt I was a butterfly. Yeah, so there are koans and stuff, and there are ways to train to become more active in dreaming. If you're at all familiar with Carlos Castaneda's work in like The Way of the Yakai Warrior, The Way of the Shaman, he wrote like an entire book series on just learning how to dream correctly, like 12 books or something.
Gotcha. So,
But I won't go too far afield. I mean, just wherever you want to guide the conversation, I'm willing to take it.
yeah, no, I'm interested in a lot of this, right? And so, you've had seemingly experiences with supernatural entities.
Okay, yeah. Let me. Can I tell?
Interact with reality, but there's no recordings or photos of any of them. And so,
right. Oftentimes, yeah. Often, you're roboting again. Sorry. Oftentimes, electronic devices just don't function in environments of high strangeness.
Full disclosure, I'm a little bit neurodivergent, and so it's hard for me to kind of place stuff. So, but I was getting really curious while you were talking about the occult, like, you know, not only sort of the epistemic justification, but like, what do you see as like from the occult? Like, what's the weird sort of like, you know, stuff that, you know, where you see yourself getting value from it, or the aspects of that sort of occult style belief that, you know, you might warn someone like, hey, this can drag you down a little bit. I don't know if that makes sense to you.
No,
but...
yeah, that makes perfect sense. I could do it with a really quick anecdote. Would that be appropriate?
Yeah, anything. Yeah.
Okay, so when I was really young, one of the first books I got was The Complete Book of Ceremonial Magic by Arthur Edward Wyatt. And in that, his language is very Christian. He's very overtly Christian. Like he's a Rosicrucian and an esotericist and this type of thing. But all of his language is very Christian. So for me, being raised, you know, somewhat Christian, I thought that this was an approachable way to do magic. But it is based on the Ars Goetia, which is the Lemegeton, or the book of the Grimoire of Solomonic Magic. Are you familiar at all?
I'm completely new to the occult, my friend.
Okay,
Sorry.
so the basic idea is like summoning a demon, trapping the demon, and then making the demon do something for you, right?
So this is, and just to sort of clarify, so this is actually practicing the occult. It's not only this reading and study, but you know, it becomes a part of your day, or it's an activity or event you do.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
So I read this one set of ritual spells and spell work, and I thought, oh, this would be interesting. But there were so many things in it that I found unapproachable. There was like, you know, the bone, the leg bone from a fresh boiled cat or whatever, you know, like a willow limb from a certain tree, and then you had to, you know, make your magic circle with salt and iron shavings, right? And so there were all these aspects that were difficult to obtain items, and I thought, oh, that's horseshit. I'm not going to do all that. I'm going to go out at midnight and boil a pure black cat, and curse it every time it tries to jump out of the pot until I get its leg bone. I thought that was, that's bananas. But I thought to myself, and this is a key moment in my life, I think, I thought to myself, if magic is real, and I believe it is real, I thought probably the magician's intention is more powerful than the actual ritual. And I thought, if I just intend this and, go through this ritual and then visually, like, do it internally in visualization in my mind, I thought I should get the same result, right? If magic is real, it should work. You shouldn't have to do all of these. Go ahead. Yeah.
Can I pause you there? So,
Sure.
Okay, so to me, this is something I don't totally understand, but it sounds like your belief about the occult is that you're able to sort of interpret how it works, and so there's some metaphysical relationship between you doing occult things and the occult actually working the way it works, the way it's supposed to work. You have a branch, like a tree branch, and it may or may not exactly be that tree branch. But Frank Monday, baby, he brings it. He can bring this together, kind of thing.
Yeah, and you may say from a very naive perspective, it's something like that. From a psychological perspective, it would be more like you're activating that part of your brain. You're familiar with the reticular activating system, the RAS?
Go if you want to kind of quickly summarize it.
Yeah, the basic rundown for the audience or for people who aren't familiar is that if I buy a yellow 1965 Volkswagen Bug, then I start to see other owners of bugs everywhere on the road, whereas I had never seen them before, right? So through the practice of magic and meditation and internal alchemy, you start to broaden your spectrum of associations. And so in my mind, I thought maybe magic would work this way, that if I fully believe and commit to this ritual, at least through internal visualization, which I later learned is the astral temple, then maybe the coincidences will align and this thing will be able to happen, right? So I'll find some way to bridge the gap between my desired result and what I'm doing right now, which could be anything, right? And for me, it was just my intent alone and willpower to do it. Yeah, so that kind of summarizes. And just to finish the story in short, I did the ritual. I woke up. I had the sleep of Sialam, right? A lucid dream where the fruition of the ritual played out. I woke up. I saw an aura of golden light out my window. I jumped out the window. I followed the light. I heard spirit voices guiding me, or just my own conscious mind saying, yeah, this is the right way to get there, right? And then I followed that light all the way down to a situation in a park where there were many people assembled. I interacted with those people with great confidence, and I got my desired result. And it happened within like a couple of days of doing the ritual internally. So I knew at that point that either magic was legit or the power of the mind was really worthwhile.
All right, and so I have a hard follow-up question, and I hope this makes sense. This is in Taco. This is my last Taco, and Frank. This is my last question. So this makes sense. The one part is that when I was religious, when I had supernatural beliefs, the only time they really truly came out was when I was facing a hardship. This is when my spiritual side sort of comes out. So I'm curious if in a specific instance where you're conducting a ritual, you're going to accomplish something, or even just introducing yourself to this topic of the occult and saying, hey, maybe this is for Frank, maybe this is for me. Was there a sort of codifying is not the right word, but was there an event or something, or are you just like, hey, your buddy Frank, your buddy Frank can say, let's kick the fuck it bucket, let's go do this thing, sweetheart?
I wouldn't say per se, not really. Like most of the real work in magic is done quietly, ghosting and grinding behind the scenes. And then the upshots of like supernatural or paranormal encounters are very rare indeed. And I think they typically appear when like there's in Tao, I don't know if this plays out or not, or if it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, but there are like 18 gates you go through. And at each stage in life, you'll have a sort of paranormal experience. They don't describe them all, but they do describe a few of them. And that seems to be the way it's playing out for me. And maybe that's somehow, me pre-programming it. But no, I would say no, not really. And I've done it in moments of joy. I've done it in moments of anger. I've done it in other various moments. I could tell you all kinds of stories, but and again, that's all up for interpretation. That's why I like to adopt a multi-model approach, and I don't say, hey, causation must absolutely be this thing, because that would be very narrow-minded, and I'm not going to be narrow-minded.
No, that's cool. I like that answer a lot. It's so often in like the either deconversion spaces or debate spaces that it's hard to find people's like true intentions to believe something. It's difficult to trust someone's being good faith and stuff like that. So I appreciate your transparency and all that. But yeah, it's weird, the juxtaposition, I think, for me as a naturalist, an atheist, is that science has these very long sort of chains where we're putting together ideas and theories from hundreds of years, right? And I know that's a lot of those ideas are wrong. A lot of those ideas don't have a willow branch that produces an occult sort of ceremony that works as you see it. But a lot of those theories also build on themselves and then result on it in even something like a computer or smartphone that really has absolutely zero other explanations. There's no other ways to come to that conclusion that we have this electronic device capable of communicating with satellites in order to communicate with other electronic devices.
Right.
Like even just deconstructing or breaking down that sort of statement is very different than saying, well, I can put a willow branch into a cauldron and then therefore now my willow branch is doing something crazy. Science doesn't work that same exact way, right?
Yeah, I totally get it. Are you familiar at all with Thelema, or Crowley's interpretation of magic and his statement in the Equinox?
No, you'd have to explain kind of where they're coming from, who those ideas were for.
It's just a two-sentence. They were all naturalists and atheists. In fact, most of these people who started these Hermetic orders. And Crowley's statement is that magic is the aim of religion with the method of science. And so, yeah, we in the magical tradition of the Hermetic sciences, we approach magic as a science, not as random chance, right? And it's been codified and brought forward. I would say the most modern representation of it is chaos magic. And so if you did a quick internet search on Peter J. Carroll and then go to his website and look at his one-page definition of chaos magic, that gives you a mathematical equation of how magic occurs.
Yeah, it's interesting, and in the year 2025, of course, when from my vantage, when I'm hearing theories of everything, from physicists saying all kinds of things, they're telling us all kinds of things about the objects and things in front of our face and the smaller stuff that makes up the entire universe, right? And so that stuff's always fascinating. It's fascinating how people get somewhere or approach a problem. To me, it's much more difficult to sort of be able to keep both the ceiling and the floor in place, and also feel that sort of whether it's spiritual or psychological sort of safety and space to explore the idea. But I'm not familiar. I don't think a lot of people in the mainstream are familiar with occult writers or what they say are the reasons and justifications. Either reasons or justifications for why a topic of study is sort of valuable or purposeful.
Yeah, well, like Israel Regardie, for example, he brought the tradition forward in the way that he would say that all of the old gods from the pantheons are just archetypes within the psyche. And so by evoking these archetypes in the psyche, you could just derive some sort of maybe even like genetic inheritance, right, from your ancestors, and it may be functioning at a quantum level that way. And as we learn new language through the scientific method, we can think of things like quantum entanglement and strange action and these other types of things. And now we realize that there is an observer effect. When you look at particles, they change. I mean, so what is that, right?
If I can stop you there, just that function of change, is so interesting, because even that idea, if we go back to the 17th or 16th century, most humans knew enough to walk around and describe Newton's universe of forces, right? We would know that, you throw a ball, it doesn't stop until it hits a wall. And so change is this sort of colliding practice. It's this grandiose type thing. And so color me surprised, when this topic comes up yet again and again and again. Even in sort of diverse worldviews, this is always something that I've seen, my fellow atheists be challenged on, fellow naturalists be challenged on, saying that, yeah, there's a lot of these qualitative descriptions like change that don't really mean anything. And yet they seem so fundamental. They seem recurring without being recursive, right? There's no complexity. There's not like a really deep description or qualifier. It's almost this like ineffable but very simple thing right in front of your face, like change.
Yeah, and it's interesting to me too. Like, you guys have chosen very specific language in how you codify your own being, and you say, "I am a naturalist. I am an atheist." Whereas me is like someone with maybe a more malleable perspective. There isn't really much that I would attribute and say I am this, that, or the other thing, right? Like maybe I seem to. Are you familiar with E prime language? Like it means to remove.
I'm not gonna know. I'm not gonna know any of this stuff. You're gonna have to kind of. I'm not the most educated of guys, to be honest.
No worries. E prime language is like a psychological term where you remove is or am from any equation in language. So rather than saying I am something, I would say I ascribe to, or I appreciate the tenets of, right? Because if you become an atheist, say for an atheist, then you've isolated and trapped yourself in a box or a paradigm, right? You have to be that because you can't be the other thing. Therefore, as a matter, you don't have the malleability to maybe shift perspective or lenses, right? E prime language is just to remove is. So let me give you another clear example of it. Like I am human, right? That would be an E prime statement. And you might rather say, it seems that I'm appearing to be human, or my cognitive sense has led me to ascribe to that. But are you, like, your consciousness, is that what it is, right? Is that so? It means to not too narrowly define things. And I would ask you why.
Whoa. No, Frank, take a step. No, take a step back on that though, because you're putting words in my mouth. Though you're putting semantic meaning in my mouth. Okay. If you no, let me finish this. If yeah, sure. I tell you I am an atheist, and you don't ask what I mean, but instead what you do is you say, well, E prime meaning is both necessarily entailed through a worldview, and it means this thing. Right, it's both linguistic and grammatical as well. So, it has some semantic meaning and grammar. Well, you're assuming for me your worldview already. I'm not that. Not yet. But I'm also not that ignorant.
No, I'm not yet. I was just speculating. You said you didn't know it, so what it was. So I was trying to come up with a suitable example. But you have said that.
No offense taken.
I am an atheist.
I am an atheist. But what do you mean if what would you mean in some hypothetical world if a person or an atheist says, I'm a Republican, I'm a Democrat, I'm a vegan, I'm a this thing or a that thing? Maybe my sense of identity in the first place doesn't apply labels in a constrictive way. Maybe these are more
maybe not. No, definitely
constructed or fundamental, both sort of things. You can kind of build that shape where you picture like a mushroom head, like a psychedelic mushroom or something at the top and the bottom,
sure.
Where it has a foundation, but also, hey, maybe it means this, maybe I donate to Humane Society. Okay. Maybe I vote. I would move to New York to vote for AOC. That's how much of a Democrat and an atheist I am. Right.
Yeah.
Those types of things. But
I get you. No, yeah, that's really good. And I appreciate you clarifying. And I apologize if I was, misconstruing what you had said, but there is a tendency in the ordinary sphere when people do strongly identify with certain labels that it does seem to constrict their ability to contemplate or at least even entertain alternative perspectives. Maybe that's what I meant.
It is horrible. Yeah, it is horrible. I'd agree. And this is maybe the, kind of my last, whatever. I'll give it back to you and Taco. But yeah, my last thing is like, when you define E prime language for me, I think of people saying, oh, all Democrats, all atheists, all Republicans, all this and that. And it's like, look, I don't know another atheist Democrat that went to Goodwill and picked up like a stupid, dumb, $3 camera phone tripod, a camera phone tripod from Goodwill today. Okay.
Yeah, those are awesome. I've got one of those.
Who the hell were you talking to? What the flying fuck were you talking about? Not to you particularly, but all of fucking who? That's all I wanted to say.
Oh, I didn't catch that last part. You totally roboted out. The Freak says, as a Christian, I can testify Frank Monday's a good guy. Thank you. I appreciate that, The Freak. Yeah, now you're on lock. Or maybe I got booted.
No, you're
up here. I think you might be lagging out some too, but I know I'm lagging out some on my end. And I see you, Robin. And Freak, thank you for the super chat. I just didn't want to interrupt them.
Okay, yeah, worries. And I apologize to Duck if that came out the wrong way. And I'd realized about halfway through saying it that I wasn't encoding it correctly, so I apologize for that.
Cool. Well, thanks for coming up, Duck. It looks like Robin had a couple of questions too. What brings you up here?
Okay, I was putting in chat where I go. I was a witch for years. I practiced in the occult. I practiced ritual and ceremonial magic too. And planetary. I used the planets a lot too. And which I'll tell you now, Frank, I'm now an atheist, and I gave up the occult. But I went and got some of my Book of Shadows out just so I could refresh myself on some of this stuff because I hadn't looked at it for a very long time. I don't know anything about Taoism. I never did make it through that. I did do a lot of the ceremonial magic though, with like I said, I go the middle pillar ritual and the lesser banishing ritual, the pentagram, those sort of things. I did those. That's some of the stuff you done.
Yeah, that tracks definitely.
Yeah, like they were on the Order of the Golden Dawn. They were they done a lot of these, and
Right. Yeah, I practice Golden Dawn ceremonial magic, but it's been a little more updated. I don't know if you're familiar with Poke Runyon and the Church of Hermetic Science at all, but that's what I'm currently practicing.
have you had you were talking about about the synchronicities that you see and everything, and
Right.
I used to have similar. I mean, I was so absorbed in this stuff, but I began to see that humans are pattern seekers. We seek out things like that. We will you're talking about the Volkswagen or whatever. Once
Right.
you start paying attention to things, you see more of that thing, whatever you're thinking about. But so it's kind of like you record the hits and you don't record the misses. I have no time. If I start thinking about red cars, I have no until I start actually get red cars in my mind. I don't even pay any attention to the red cars until it strikes me that I'm seeing red cars or I'm looking for red cars, and then I see a lot of red cars. That's kind of how I figured out. And I thought I used to make the same claims about science, about how it was. I mean, I was so sure that this stuff was just dead up science, actually. And it's just though I began to understand that a lot of it is it's just pattern seeking that humans do. I did find the rituals beneficial to my psyche. Just because I would sit and do the rituals on a daily basis, and it was like a meditation, and it sometimes would calm me down or whatever. But I have a hard time with it now, seeing that it was never testable, and it was always, it seemed like things I've done spells and things, and I actually had times when I thought that I got results from my spells, but I never could actually. I don't know how to put this. I never could actually show causation for the spell. You know what I mean? Like I couldn't determine if it was just something that would have happened anyway, if it was like just coincidence. And it just doesn't seem very testable to be listed on science. Does that make sense? Or repeatable?
Well, I would say that the scientific method is becoming a little more malleable in that respect too. Like to definitely assert causation is not really a scientific like thing, I would say per se, because there are many factors involved in every event or encounter or phenomena, and certainly there are things in the world like natural phenomena. Some of them there are seem to be like patterns that we recognize, like lightning strikes and stuff like this.
To be
But
clear, science operates off of methodological naturalism, and so it's assuming that this is all being caused for pretty much
Right.
everything that's happening.
But
Yes.
there are also a lot of factors, even in the most controllable situations, where certain things might not be like reproducible, replicable. Is that the word?
Yes.
So the only
So,
thing
yeah.
that really appears to be uncaused, from my understanding, are quantum fluctuations, which seem to be random and uncaused, right?
Right. So our science hasn't discovered magic yet. Or actually, the longest existing record from human history is about magic and astrology. I don't necessarily study astrology much because I just don't do it. It's not my forte. But it's the longest
Well,
existing
what's going on was
science.
you made the scientists think that causation may not be reliable or something like that, and I was just commenting that the sciences wouldn't exist if causation wasn't somewhat reliable at the macro scale, right? Like if
Right,
you mix two
right.
chemicals, there's going to be a chemical reaction in most
Yeah,
cases.
yeah. And that seems to
They're
be true,
chemicals
right?
that
But
react with each other.
but then there's the outliers, right? Like a placebo might be just as effective as a nocebo.
Well, we understand though some of those things from just the actual human psyche of the effects that our
Right.
own
So in
mind has on our health or um you know it's not really supernatural like a placebo isn't. It's just it affects it knowing that you're taking or thinking that you're taking something that should be benefiting you some is good. Like it sometimes will affect your psyche that will actually help in healing, or in
Here's
causing.
why
a good point.
why
If a placebo is as effective as a treatment, it's because the treatment doesn't work.
yeah, that's possible.
Yeah,
Definitely.
I mean,
So,
yeah,
so
but
science. My main argument here would be that science hasn't answered all of our questions, and it never
But
will.
like,
Right?
if you have a bacterial
oh,
infection
I agree.
and they give you a placebo, they're going to get sued for medical malpractice, and you're going to be in trouble health-wise, right?
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. So science would be, I guess, the general rule of consensus, as
But I mean,
opposed to the
science doesn't,
outliers.
like he said, science doesn't study, like science studies the natural world. So, like, if we were to ever find out anything about like things in the occult through science, it would be not supernatural anymore. It would be natural.
Well, it would be more better understood. It could still be considered supersensual or beyond the ordinary perception of everyday individuals. Because in the magical tradition, you're training your sense apparatus, even like your eyes and ears and like your internal sensations, your kinesthetic sensations, to be more sensitive than the average individual. So there's a difference there, definitely. You're working with different tools. Like if you have binoculars and I have a microscope, then we're working with different tools. And again, it's the aim of religion with the method of science. So the way I approach it through Hermetic sciences is with a scientific method. I do lots of record keeping and I see if things play out. So why did you quit and why did you become an atheist, as you called yourself?
Well,
I think you explained that to an extent that you just felt like it really wasn't working out for you, or
no, I actually, my youngest daughter told me that she was atheist. And she really did not like the practicing magic, and I began to looking into it, and I began to looking into the why I thought that these things were working. Um, how often was I counting the hits and not the misses, and how does the human psyche work when it comes to um, training yourself to like you said, like the cars or whatever, start paying attention.
well, and you
And
do know that.
also, and like priming yourself for seeing supernatural, like orbs or different things like that. You prime yourself when you do these when you believe, because in magic, part of the thing is you have to believe it. That's part
No,
of
no,
what
no, you not at all. No, you don't.
well
And I would
I
say
did.
that yeah,
I
you
mean,
are poisoning the well, so to speak. If you do believe, you should work to prove and know things. You shouldn't base it in belief, right? Belief is very shallow.
well, see, I was always taught that you had to actually believe this, that if you doubted your own magic, that your magic was not going to work. You know what I mean? Because it had your intention, when you sent your intention out with your cone of power or whatever, then you had to believe in that. You had to visualize that and see it happening. So if I
Yeah,
cast a spell, I had to be able to sit while I was doing, after I did my circle or whatever, I had to be able to visualize the intention that was behind my spell, and visualize, if it was money, I had to visualize that money being in my hand. I had to visualize, and I worked with every kind of different, I worked with the herbs, the planets, the oils,
oh yeah,
just
sure, I get it. I get it. Yeah.
any kind of thing that you could use, whatever I did whatever, even the time of day. I would do the times of days, because there was certain times of days where, if I was doing a communication spell, there was a certain time of day that Mercury, who ruled over communication, that it was those hours that Mercury was supposed to be in charge of. And I mean,
Yeah,
I
and
went through a lot of.
where did all that tradition and record keeping come from? Like, why did they think there was a propensity that if Mercury is accentuated at a certain time, that it would be helpful? Where would that understanding come from?
I mean, I'm not sure. I always considered it ancient information, but I've learned now a lot more about it, that it's not near as ancient as I thought it was. But
No, it is.
the
That dates all the way back to the Sumerians. They were doing this type of record keeping in cuneiform. So yeah, again, it's the most persistent scientific inquiry there's been, is the power of the mind and the attributes of our natural world since ancient times. So it may be that you guys have a kind of a woo-woo view of magic, where I don't look at it that way. I look at it as a scientific endeavor.
I mean, I did too. I just I began to see that there was just things, it's not any way to trace it back to um
No way that you found.
yeah, no way that is, there's, to me, there was just no good evidence, enough sufficient evidence to
That you
attribute.
found.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean, that I
Yeah,
could
that's fine.
use to justify um the belief in it. And I don't believe in like some being an atheist does not mean that I don't believe in the supernatural, because I think atheist is just believing gods. And like you were talking about a while ago, I worked with the pantheons, the different pantheons. If if I had a communication spell, I used Mercury, or if I wanted to do a love spell, I would have used Venus, or and then sometimes I used even the Egyptian gods and goddesses, but then I got into the ritualistic magic, like the cobble and all the middle pillar and the banishing ritual of the pentagram and things like that. Because I would do that like before I cast any spell. I would do that. And I can't see any reason to any evidence that it actually is something that is repeatable and is we can actually show causation for it. Does that make sense?
I don't know. That's up for you to determine. From my perspective, no, not at all, because I've had a very different life experience than you.
Well, I'm sure that any kind of magic you do, you are manipulating energy in your mind, right?
Yeah, just I've had very different results in my magical practice and record keeping, so I can't necessarily identify with your failures.
Well, I mean, I'd be interested in, and like you can show like consistency in your spells and your results.
Oh, absolutely.
And they're like they're.
I've achieved great heights in my spiritual transformation, and like the immediacy of my magic is very powerful these days. So I'm always very careful of what I even think about or wish for, because the effects have become so dynamic that it can almost be instantaneous sometimes. But my path is very different from yours. I'm not just traditionally a hermeticist. I also use Chinese Qigong and Kung Fu and talismans in the Chinese system. And so I have a very different level of training than you. I've received initiation into certain secret orders. And so I just think that we have very different experiences. It would never lead me to believe in atheism or to deviate from my own chosen path. So I was curious. That's why I asked the question.
Well, atheism is like pertaining to my belief. So
yeah, that's fine and dandy. I just didn't really feel
it's just my belief. It's not really actually. I'm not what they considered. I don't consider. I use the newer version of atheism. I don't believe that. I don't hold to that thing that atheism says that there is no gods. I mean, I think most gods are unfalsifiable. Some of them are not. Some of them are like, I would say the Christian God is falsifiable, and is illogical, like on so many levels. But there are gods that have been proposed that there's no way. And then there's gods that probably nobody has ever proposed that I can't falsify. But I don't know. It was interesting to hear somebody come up and talk about magic, because all I hear about all the time is gods and things. And
okay.
like I would use I have used like the Bible in my magic, like the Psalms for like uncrossing rituals and things like that. And
yeah, it sounds like good magic. The only thing I would say is, in the dark night of the soul, don't never give up halfway. I mean, it's up to you to do whatever you want, but as a magical practitioner, we have like a tradition in the Chinese system that the only ones who achieve like great spiritual heights are the wearers of what we call the Technicolor robe, or the robe of patchwork. And so when they get to the end of their life, people wonder why they have like these old items that they've carried with them since they were a child. And they say, why should you throw away the good tools in your life only halfway along life's journey? And so when I hear someone that's, that's lost faith or given up, then, it just means that maybe you didn't have the breakthroughs that would keep you interested in the tradition. And I think for most people, the magical path would not be appropriate. And originally the guy, Andy, he asked me a question: what would be the detriments? What would be the bad things about it? And I was going to get into a couple of them, but I didn't even get to finish my anecdote on the first spell I cast. So it's just sometimes it takes time to develop an idea, and I know you know that. So
yeah, I mean, I see I see it as far less intrusive into society than regular religion like Christianity or Islam, because there's nothing in ceremonial magic or most magical practices that like include any kind of violence or like like if I'm a ceremonial witch, I don't want to obliterate the Wiccans or something like that. You know what I mean? So I don't see it as quite as intrusive into society. I just care more
Absolutely.
now about.
I agree with that. It's
Yeah,
not intrusive, and it's mostly the path of the solo practitioner.
Yes,
So,
that's what I was.
there-
I care more now about what's true. That's my like. Is
I'm
it
sorry to interrupt
true?
this great conversation, but there is a super chat. Karen Dave says Frank says his magic is repeatable and testable. What sort of things does he believe his magic does that he? What I read that wrong, but does that can be recorded? Could someone else record those results and arrive at the same conclusion?
Yeah, I think the most easily trackable one would be like maybe divination. So as an outward expression, calculations based on the I Ching and winning in a casino. Another one would be like relationship analysis by way of the tarot cards. Those types of things are pretty easily trackable.
So he's saying by prophecy.
No, divination. Prophecy is a little different. Prophecy is also repeatable and can be tangibly interacted with, but most of what you're told in the realms beyond is you're actually sworn to silence and are meant to be kept secret. So like I could open my journals to you and you could see where I've predicted a couple of world events and different things like that, and some other like localized prophecies, and like there's different things going on right now that magicians are interacting with. But for the most part, no, prophecy would not be. Some of it would be, but not most of it would not be. And then again, like your causation would be in question there. Was it a coincidence? Did they foresee the future? Did they create it to happen? Or there'd be a lot of randomness in it. So yeah, most of it is no. The answer would be no. Work with a Ouija board would be easily measurable and easily tangible to actual practitioners, not just random kids hanging out, drinking beer and playing with a Ouija board. But if you genuinely met people who know how to cultivate their electromagnetic charge by way of Qigong, then you could see the actual tangible effect of working with a Ouija board.
Gotcha. And thank you so much for the super chat, Dave. That's greatly appreciated.
Yeah, it's a great question.
I've got to get off, Taco.
Hopefully that answers your
I've got to
question,
log
man.
off.
Oh, no worries, Robin. Thank you for popping up and asking some questions.
Yeah, thank you for your time. And have a great day.
I'm kind of at a loss, right? Because I'm listening to this, and I would love for magic. I'd love to shoot fireballs out of my fingertips, right? That'd be freaking cool.
That'd be awesome.
Or like some type of force powers. Like I love Star Wars.
I'll tell you from a pragmatic standpoint, I've been trying to develop even a small amount of telekinetic power for over 30 years, and I don't think it's possible.
Gotcha. I'd love to be able to astral project, or like you said, telekinesis, anything like that.
Right.
But it just seems like every example of magic and spirits and whatever else that you've gone over, you're saying it's repeatable and testable, but you've been doing this for years and years, but you have absolutely no evidence of any of this to present to anybody other than claims about what you think you have seen and done, right?
Right. It's all subjective, experiential evidence. Some of it's recorded, and again, I would have to expose my journals. One tangible thing I would say is that, with the last caller, she said that she practiced the pentagram ritual for a while, and My only thing would be, did she do it in a scientific manner? Did she do it at the same time every day with the same intensity for a measurable enough period of time while keeping records to see whether or not there was a tangible, measurable effect or not? And if not, then she wasn't using the scientific method in endeavoring to do that. Like, and she talked a lot about belief, which I didn't found any of what I'm doing on belief. I founded it on experimentation. And so I didn't go in thinking this is going to work. I just said, hey, I'm going to do this for a while and see if it does work. And so I arrived at knowledge, at least personalized knowledge, rather than belief. And I think they're very different.
Marcus Antonio makes a good point in that he can rub two sticks together and make a fire.
Absolutely.
And that's repeatable and verifiable.
And a caveman would consider that magic. And you got to remember,
how many followers do you have over there for your thing that you're doing?
For my channel, Frank Monday.
Oh, no. You said you're in China. Do you have like followers that?
Oh, no. I work with
anything.
No, I work with a temple that I go to. But yeah, most of the practice is done just as a solo practitioner. I teach a dance class every Wednesday night, and I teach a Kung Fu class on Saturdays on the weekend. But I got about 5 or 10 students in my Kung Fu class, and then I got like, it ranges anywhere from 20 to 50 people show up for my dance night. Like I do swing dance. But both of those are magical endeavors in my mind. I mean, as a magician, as a magical practitioner, I believe that everything is magic at this point, right? And everything has a sort of magical relationship. But this is very miasmic, you know. It means nothing to the everyday average individual. But for my esoteric circles, like I'll do some online meetings and stuff anymore because, no followers, none.
I mean,
and I don't intend to take any.
By like magic, is it possible that you think something is so beautiful that it has to be magical, or?
Well, again, I could get more into like anecdotes of paranormal encounter that ordinary individuals would consider to be paranormal. But as I get older and I do more and I achieve higher levels of like magical incarnation of my own being, they become more routine for me, whereas to an ordinary individual, it would seem more supernatural, like encountering things like plasma in the sky and various other. And no, the answer, I'm not sure that I totally understood your question. Could you repeat it?
You go off on tangents, and I apologize. I already forgot my question.
Yeah, no worries.
I don't think it would matter too much anyways.
And the main point I wanted to make before that was like all of the people who brought forth great change, most of the people throughout history that have brought forth great changes in our scientific endeavors have been magicians, Freemasons, Rosicrucians, and maybe it's just because of the fact that many of these people have educations, right? And they study the arcane. But when we think of like even Newton, he was a Mason and he studied the arcane. And in discovering gravity and coming up with these theorems, he was trying to prove that there was an ether field. Tesla was very invested in the idea of ether, or an unknown element, right? The quintessence that occurs before matter materializes.
Can I ask you a couple personal questions?
Again, chemistry comes from magic, right? Go ahead.
So feel free not to answer these, but have you ever been diagnosed with any type of disorder that might cause hallucinations?
No, never. And I would totally know the difference between hallucination and something paranormal. There's a very different thing that happens, and other people can be present to witness it. So yeah, there's
have you ever brought up this magic and spirit stuff to a actual doctor that would be able to say, "Hey, it sounds like this"?
No, I work with a therapist. No, I think therapy is extremely important, and I work with a traditionally trained therapist.
Have you spoke with a psychiatrist?
Like people who would give you meds if they thought you were weird?
Yeah.
No, I've worked with trained doctors, though. In fact, everyone in my field is a doctor. I work in academia.
Have you talked to them about the magic stuff and the spirits you see?
I see where you're leading with this. So yeah, it is a very loaded type of endeavor. But no, I'm not. I'm not suffering from any form of delusion. Again, I apply the scientific method to everything I do. So yeah, I don't. Why would I need to defer my authority to someone else and ask someone's opinion on this type of thing? I've spoke with a lot of people who practice. Yeah, and like I said, I'm initiated into traditions. So yeah, I'm not alone. I'm not a weirdo, and I'm not just hallucinating things. But I see what you're implying. That's fine.
What about drug use? Do you use any drugs?
I live in China, so drug use is illegal outside of the legal drugs like nicotine, caffeine, and alcohol.
Have you used acid repeatedly in the past?
No.
What about shrooms?
No, I don't know if I've ever eaten shrooms. What about you?
Gotcha.
Do you use acid and shrooms?
No. I mean, I've done shrooms years and years and years ago, right? But
Repeatedly for
I think
extended
2
periods of
times
time?
in my life.
Okay. What about other
I'm
drugs
just
currently?
curious because there's a thing that happens with acid where it causes these like flashbacks, which are kind of like a hallucination, and then there's I don't know if there's something similar with shrooms, but if you had the wrong brain, or if you had a bad brain imbalance, you might be able to have something like that happen. I was just curious. 5% of the
Yeah, that makes
population
sense.
also does hallucinate just randomly.
Okay.
Although it sounds like I honestly don't know if this is like an overactive imagination or whether like I'm not a doctor. I don't know if medical advice would help if you went to a doc. I have no idea what's going on there.
Why would you be
I
giving
don't
me
think
medical
any of
advice?
it's real though.
Do you
right?
think there's something detrimental in my practice, or are you just trying to devalue what I've been talking about?
No, I'm just being real about my opinions and what you've been telling me.
Okay, could you specify one thing?
Yeah, there's no demonstrable evidence for anything that you've covered here, and I mean, it sounds like I'm talking to somebody that's been hallucinating a lot, right? And that it sounds absolutely crazy, right?
Really? Okay. I don't know how you would arrive at that, but yeah.
I mean, we share the same world, right? This is a naturalistic, atheistic reality, right? You don't see
From
any
your
God,
perspective,
but somehow
you don't know that.
like,
You don't know that.
think you're
You don't know what I've seen. You don't know what others have seen
seen
either.
God.
That's a consensus. I'm not saying that I have, but I'm saying that you don't know that. I haven't purported that.
Do you think you've seen gods?
I didn't say that. You're speculating way off out in left field, and you're reading something into what I've said that doesn't make tangible
off
sense.
of methodological naturalism, right?
Do you have a
you're
PhD
saying
in
that
psychoanalysis?
You're saying like magic is this thing that you can do through natural processes, and you have
those are opinion based. Those are opinion based assertions.
Spirits.
And that's all within the language of certain theological traditions. And again, most of what you have in the scientific realm comes from magical practitioners. So I don't see why it would be such a leap of faith and why you would consider that to be maniacal mental disorder. That's interesting.
I mean, it just sounds absolutely insane to me, right?
To you, yeah, because you don't have any personal experiences. You haven't done the work to change any of the thresholds of your perception.
I mean, I was a Christian for like 16 or 17 years, right?
That's not spiritual work by any measure.
I've read the Bible.
So as a Christian,
I've read the Quran.
Other than reading the Bible and the Quran,
what people before I did YouTube?
What practices did you do to attempt to expand your spiritual thresholds?
Right.
Go ahead.
So like I'm still doing regular shows on Discord, but we used to do 2 times a week, and I had a ton of people actually early on come up and tell me their supernatural experiences, right? and there's never been anything verifiable. Some people try to quabble over the definition of the term supernatural when you guys have a rough idea of what you're talking about right off the bat when somebody says, have you seen ghosts or goblins, as in like supernatural, right? So at least you're not quabbling over the definition of that. But to me, this just sounds like there's something going on there, right? Because I mean, we share the same reality. I don't
Not
see any
necessarily.
magic, and every
you don't have
James
to.
Randi.
You can't prove that we share the same reality. That's just a subjective opinion.
Oh, okay, that's nice. Have you spoke with James, or not spoke with, but have you seen James Randi's challenge to pretty much anybody to prove supernatural? It was like, if I'm not mistaken, it was $1 million challenge that was up for like 30 years, 40 years, long time, and nobody completed it. I think it's still active.
Okay, cool. I don't know why I would be interested.
I don't know. I'd have to double check.
Is it a big?
James
is it a big
Randi challenge? Let's see what it says.
Is it
$1
a
million
jackpot?
paranormal challenge. Oh no, it was terminated in 2015. It looks like. But it was from 1964 to 2015. Over 1,000 people applied to take it, but none was successful. They terminated in 2015.
Along this line of arguing, I could argue in exactly the same manner and say that anything you know and everything you perceive is only hearsay anyway, right? Like nobody can justify whether or not you're actually experiencing gravity.
Yeah,
And,
I'm not dealing with that. I don't care about any.
No,
of that.
I'm just saying.
Like
but your same line of inquiry is just based on the same type of rationing.
Well, no. You're so. What I'm saying is that this supernatural stuff sounds absolutely crazy to me, right? What you're saying is that because I have a opinion about these things that you've said to me, and I'm telling you, man to man, what this sounds like to me. I'm an atheist. I made it clear at the very beginning. But what this sounds like to me,
it's a nice, neat little box you fit yourself into. I can appreciate that.
Well, I like.
It's
like
very
to hear
squared
about
away,
this stuff.
right?
I would like
it
to
has,
have, like,
it has
if you
very
had
rigid
photos of you doing
lines,
photos or videos of you doing magic, or you had some spell I could cast on the spot and shoot fireballs out of my fingertips, right? Or whatever the case may be.
Well, good magic if you can do that. Good luck with it.
That would be so
it would
freaking
be.
cool.
It would be.
What if we got everybody in the chat shooting fireballs out of their fingertips tonight? That would have been so dope.
Number one, magic is written with a K, and you just don't even understand the basic premise of it. So you're trying to analyze something that you have a very little understanding. In my opinion, I don't think that you understand much about it, and so I don't think there's a comparison. I don't think you have a fair way to analyze it. It's not religion.
But where you were going with that, what I was saying was, but because I was
in your mind, in your opinion,
you went into pigeon shitting on the chessboard maneuver, which is where you basically pull out into well, how do you even know you exist territory, right?
Rather than I started with the premise that all of my evidence would be anecdotal, and I'm just sharing that as a form of interaction, not for you to psychoanalyze.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, and the audience, I'm sure, appreciates it too. It's very interesting.
Yeah, and I'm not looking for like your assessment of what it is, or my mental health in your opinion. None of that is relevant to me. I just came here to have a polite conversation. If you
this has been a polite conversation. I'm just being real, man. This sounds like hallucinations of some sort.
I could tell you the same, man, that you're hallucinating, that you're all alone in a cosmos that's full of spiritual entities, and that when you sit there
and on the chessboard again.
Well, again, yeah, it goes in both directions. That's the essential.
Not
conundrum.
Exactly, because
it is. No, it is.
In my response, I'm assuming that we both share a place in this universe, and that we're minds engaging with each other. And then your response is to shit on a chessboard and say that, well, I might not even be in a real reality talking to you, right now, right? That's her
I mean,
response.
think of it from my
So
perspective. Step back for a
that's
moment.
basically backing out of the conversation. Rather
No,
than,
not
we
at
have like
all.
an agreed upon point when we enter a conversation.
No, try to take a step
There's
back.
some universe around us.
Give me a
and we both
second,
think
if
the
you
other
would.
person
I'll
exists.
present you with one conundrum that will solve this. Try to think of it from my perspective. I just met you in a chat room. You're on the internet. I have no tangible proof that you even exist. You may, in fact, I have very tangible proof that large language models and AI these days can not only produce really believable video, but they can also produce really believable interactions through conversation and voice mechanics. So all of that can be reproduced by a computer. What tangible proof do I have, or that you have either, that I'm even a human being, right? So we've already gotten to that point in technology.
I mean, that would be pretty dope if you were an alien or a Bigfoot, right? I would like.
You could just be an AI
I would
bot.
still want to engage with you if you were an alien or a Bigfoot.
I'm arguing with one of YouTube's alga bots. I mean, it's not a big deal. No reason to get upset about it.
I mean, like real talk, if you were an alien,
again,
or
you're trying to
Bigfoot,
preface it
that
with
would
real
be
talk. It's
crazy
not real
cool.
talk. It's a hypothetical within a hypothetical. Russian nesting dolls. Yeah, no, I don't expect anyone to believe what I believe or know what I know, because they have not lived what I lived. And I would not assert my opinions or ideas onto others in that manner. I'm just trying to, like this guy a moment ago in the chat, he said you're not using the scientific method. But from my understanding is you do repeated things and try to get repeatable results, and you do record keeping of that. So I've been more scientific in my practice than I believe most others have. And I would just
if it was
assert
scientific,
that.
other people could repeat it, right?
Yeah, absolutely, and they do. There's an entire community of people that do these exercises and repeat and do get results.
Well, the thing about science is anyone can do it, right?
Right, and I'm not saying, well, yeah, anyone with, you have to do some things. You can't just sit there and not do anything and expect to have magic power. I mean, you actually have to do the practices.
No, but you can literally go online and pull up a chemical reaction that you want to do and make a chemical reaction happen, right?
Right, and that came from the realm of alchemy, and it came from magical practice and inquiry into nature.
Like painters use chemical reactions. I think it's painters, but I mean, there's all sorts of chemicals that are used in all different fields of just normal people doing day-to-day jobs, right? And
absolutely.
They use the chemicals to cause chemical reaction. Literally hundreds of fields and just standard business applications, right?
So are those same chemical reactions occurring within your body?
I mean, it depends on the chemicals. Probably not. I mean, it's just.
Are you familiar at all with DMT? Have you ever used that?
No.
No. Okay.
Sounds crazy, dude.
Doesn't DMT naturally secrete from your pineal gland when you sleep at night?
I don't know that much about DMT.
Okay. I was just curious. I just see how far you've gone afield on that.
About it. But Robin Webster was saying that it sounds like it's pattern seeking and priming your mind to accept the idea.
Pattern seeking is not a scientific term. It's pattern recognition. They're different. You're implying that you're looking for
you understand what they're saying when they say
recognition
that, though.
of it. No, that's not an acceptable term in even the language or the terminology of the science. So it's irrelevant.
So you understand what they're saying, though.
I understand that it's misleading. It's a hypothetical scenario and it's speculation, but it's not scientific.
Do you think it's possible that you are priming your mind to
why, if you call yourself a
scientific
scientific materialist and an atheist and a naturalist, why would you use language that's from pseudoscience?
Do you think that's possible that you were convincing yourself?
It's not up to me to speculate. I'm not working on my PhD in neurology, so yeah, or in mind science, cognitive science. So it's not for me to speculate on those terms. It's my job would be to study their field and adapt the language that they've created, and not to be an armchair quarterback and say it's this way or the other. I mean, I don't have a doctorate in that. I actually have a doctorate in Chinese poetry, and that's my field of inquiry. So if you were to question me about the language of Tong poetry, that's something I could dissertate on. But no, I'm not going to walk into hypotheticals within hypotheticals. I think that's a form of madness. If you have a valid hypothesis, then I would be really willing to debate it. But I didn't come here for a debate. I came for an interview, and I assumed that it was one in a polite fashion, a gentlemanly conversation.
Yeah, I'm trying to be gentlemanly here. I just sincerely feel like
fine. Just state your feedback on it. Say, I think Magick's bullshit. Then we move on. The interview's over, right? Have a great day. It was wonderful.
Well, I mean, I already said I think the Magick is kind of nonsensical. But I'm going further than that and saying
you don't have to. I appreciate it. Thank you, but no. Yeah, thank you, but no.
It might be worthwhile to see if most people don't hallucinate, right? Like there is 5% of the U.S. or the world that hallucinates randomly, and there's studies on this that shows that like 5% of the world literally just hallucinates. But
you're quite clever, breakfast tacos,
right?
And that's fine. And I've enjoyed the interview, but yeah, I'm not willing to go into that realm of fantasy with you. So you can enjoy it on your own, and that's fine. I appreciate the time. I appreciate the interview.
Yeah, thank you for coming up.
I hope the chat enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed it, and have a great day.
Yeah, it was a pleasure chatting with you. Have a wonderful one, man. Thank you for coming up.
Okay, good magic. Bye for now.
Get wrecked, nerd. Got fucking dominated, dude.
Absolutely dominated.